Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's version of the Hardwood Nation's Flagrant 2 podcast with myself, C.L. Anthony, editor in chief of the Hardwood Nation, and Bryce Ward, my Hardwood Nation writer for the Orlando Magic. What's up, Bryce?
Not much, man. How you doing? I know it's a
I'm
little
actually,
early.
it's early, and I'm actually shocked that I got through that intro without messing it up, but hey, it's going to be a good day, right?
It's the first time for everything.
Oh, yeah, fuck you. All right, so here we go. This week has been crazy. So we had the NBA draft Wednesday night, and then that led right into NBA free agency. Kind of the first time that those things have happened in the same week. So we have an accelerated schedule that we're working with right now. Just a quick couple of things on the draft. I know you're happy with Cole Anthony going to the Orlando Magic. Um, how do you feel about him? Just go more in depth on it.
Without knowing too much, because I don't like to follow the college players too much, because it's just you never really know. Even with some of these top guys, you just don't know. So I like to wait and see. But with us having a younger team, I expect Cole to see his opportunity given to him probably fairly early, especially depending on if we get rid of Fournier at this point. We'll see. Or or did we already resign him? No.
Fournier,
So
Fournier opted
yeah.
in, so the Magic can still trade him, but he opted in to get that final year of his deal.
Okay, that was finalized. Okay. So either way though, he's gonna get his chance to show us what he's got. And based on what I've read and a few highlight videos I've seen, hopefully he can bring some reliable scoring, some shooting. So with the backcourt of him and Fultz, when they're on the court, should be pretty dynamic and energetic and fun to watch. So I'm interested to see him play with Fultz as well, to see exactly how their play styles go together. But for where we were at in the draft and based on what was available, I think they made a pretty good pick. And I'm excited for a while, or for the first time in a while, to really see if what his scoring, like if he can transition to the NBA and bring that some of that offense that he had in North Carolina. Like, you just don't know if it's going to translate always. You don't know the guys who are really going to still pop in the NBA, but I like the guy's attitude and his persona so far. So let's just see if he can score. But I like the pick. So hopefully
There's
it
two
turns into
things.
something.
There's two things I like about the kid. He has the North Carolina lineage, so that's one thing I like about him. But also, he's the son of Greg Anthony, who I grew up watching, who was a decent point guard on some championship contender teams a couple of times. So steady point guard, so he can show his kids some things. I always like second gen players because they just have a instinct. They have a knowledge that other kids don't have. They grew up around this, so. Um, and I'm pretty sure Greg has had in-depth conversations on how to handle certain situations on and off the court with his kid, similar to Dale and Steph Curry. Steph Curry was born to play in the NBA. Cole Anthony might be the same thing. So I'm excited. I'll be able to check him out a couple of games, see what's going on down there. But he's going to have more time with DJ Augustine moving on from the Orlando Magic. So there's definitely going to be some minutes there for him to have and for him to grow. Now, Dwayne Bacon is also signed with the Magic, and he's actually a local product. He's a Lakeland boy, so we'll see what happens there because he's going to eat some of those minutes too at the 2 and 3 position. But yeah, the Magic made a couple of moves that I enjoyed, so it's pretty good. One more thing about the draft. I've waited 3 years for this moment. I know you've hated me for 3 years about this moment. I just want to say congratulations to my little cousin LaMelo Ball for getting drafted by the Charlotte Hornets. How do you think he's going to fit there under Michael Jordan?
Great. You're not related for
That's
one,
my that's
because
my little cousin.
yeah, but you just say that people be like, "Is he related?"
Yes, that's my little cousin for real.
No, I don't think
Okay.
so. I haven't hated that you've been interested in where he's gonna land for 3 years. I just, like many people, were annoyed with the publicity that their father was putting out at first, which now isn't nearly as loud. So I just want to see how the kid does. Like, talking about Cole Anthony to the Magic, is Ball gonna be able to perform in in the pros. Is he going to be able to handle everything? And I think so. I think his brother showed him, like a path for how to deal with some things, but he has a different role and he has a different play style than his brother. And so it's going to be interesting to see. I think landing in Charlotte is a great place, especially under NJ. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do this year.
Yeah, we all in the family, we all thought that New York would be the place for him to go. Unfortunately, New York didn't get a high enough pick because he is box office. And it actually reminds me about the dynamic between Venus and Serena Williams with LaMelo and with Lonzo because years ago, Richard Williams was like, hey, Venus was winning Grand Slams at this time. And Richard Williams, their father, was like, hey, y'all haven't seen the little one yet. Like, she's the better
Mhm.
one. And everyone thought he was crazy. LeVar said the same thing. Yeah, Lonzo's good, but Lonzo's the prototype. Wait until you see the little one. Well, now we're going to see him. He's going to be in a small market. He's going to be the guy, and he's underneath the GOAT. I mean, you can't ask for a better situation than that. And even if his dad, I love my uncle to death, but even if his dad steps out of line, Michael will be there to be like, no, settle down. Who's not going to listen to the GOAT, right? So
Yep.
Michael has that clout to keep LeVar under control, even though LeVar has been fine for about a year and a half now. He hasn't been so vocal because he knows he can't mess this one up. Like LaMelo's going to be the guy. Between his children, LaMelo was always the golden child. Now we're about to see, and he's still growing. He's 6'7". He's still growing. He could finish out at 6'9". So that's going to be Magic Johnson's height. He's not going to put on the weight that Magic Johnson did, but he's going to be a 6'9", maybe 6'8" point guard. And the only point guards we've ever had that large was Magic Johnson and Penny Hardaway. That's it. So he has the potential to be special. He has to fill out, of course. He has to get stronger, and then he has to listen to the direction of the GOAT. But I think it's a good fit. It's going to put asses in the seats once this COVID stuff goes away. It's a great fit for Charlotte. Really great fit. So, with that said, we had some free agent movement the last couple of days. A lot of free agent movement.
Yep.
The biggest one, ironically, is still with Charlotte. Gordon Hayward and his $120 million deal for 4 years, as far as a free agent, was the biggest deal so far. De'Aaron Fox re-signed with Sacramento, so I'm not going into that. But the biggest move so far has been Gordon Hayward. Do you think Gordon Hayward is worth $120 million?
Maybe. But nobody can know that. So anybody willing to pay that right now, I feel like is a gamble.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like maybe like a 1 year contract with somewhere with like to see what he's got. Maybe he could have even gotten more. After that, depending on how that one
Right.
season looked. I was expecting more of like that type of contract at first to start, but hey, I mean, good for him. Now let's just see if he can deliver on any of that. Let's just see, if he's the same player that he used to be. I mean, physically and mentally. We don't know. Not saying he isn't, because he came to Boston and he was still like a number one option. I felt like so. Um, well, we'll see. I hope the best for him. I hope he delivers on that contract and plays well.
Yeah, and for the most part stays injury free because just the injuries just wrecked him in Boston. But it gave room for the young guys, the young kids up there to shine, and then he was the odd man out. So I mean, the writing was on the wall with that last year. That's why he was in such a hurry to get away from there. But I, I think at that amount and that commitment of years with his injuries, it was a little too much. I agree with you. It should have been a 1 year deal now. Show me what you got. And then next year, we up the deal. Um, but hey, Charlotte's making a move. They need to put asses in seats, like I mentioned. And also, this is good for LaMelo Ball because the pressure's not on him to do everything. He can kick it out to Gordon and let Gordon create. So
Mhm.
you have two playmakers now. You have Ball, you have Gordon, you still have Rozier there who can bring he can give you shooting, but he can also bring defense. Um,
Mhm.
Charlotte is quickly transforming themselves on the go. Now, with that said, there's another team actually in the Western Conference that's kind of transforming themselves on the go. They just picked up Chris Paul via trade, and then yesterday they just signed Jay Crowder away from the Miami Heat. I love Crowder. I love everything that he brings to the court, and I think he'll be absolutely fantastic for that young Phoenix Suns team. Defensively, and offensively because he can make an open shot. How do you think about how do you like the moves that Phoenix is making? Because they're being kind of aggressive now to say, hey, we're trying to move up here.
I think once they finalize the Chris Paul thing, I think they realize the potential of this team. So not only, in my eyes, are they expecting playoffs, but I think they're expecting to like posture to have someone who can really help them deep in the playoffs with some of these teams, whether it's um, Luca or Kawhi or LeBron. You have to have one of these elite defenders like
Mhm.
Crowder, one of these bigger bodies who can at least move. You
Right.
if you're out there, you have to have a guy like that. If you're serious about making it deep, I feel like you have to have someone. So I'm already expecting Booker to have like a lights out year, probably his best season to date, and for Chris Paul to bring that consistency that he brought to OKC. I expect them to be a playoff team. So them getting Crowder to me is just them like piling on as much as they can. Let's just see how far we can go this year. If we don't make the playoffs, that's a huge bust. That's a massive bust. But at this point, I feel like with that get, they're not just trying to make the playoffs; they're trying to really compete.
Yeah,
Because
they
I
are.
think they saw what they could do in the bubble this last year. Because they have to feel cheated. They probably felt like with the momentum they had, they could have played well in the playoffs. And so I just think they're hungry and they're really posturing to not just make it to the playoffs, but try to make it out of the first round or something.
Right, right. I think because they did play well in the bubble and kind of the second half of the season last year. Um, I think they believe they can go to the second round. Just all depends on who they get matched up with in the first round because they're going to be a lower seed, so it's going to be a dogfight. But you have to believe in yourself. That's the first step. They have great coaching. They have the star. They have the go-to guy. Now they have the vet that they need, and now they're going to bring a defensive presence in. So they're putting the team together the right way. Um,
Mhm.
Having Chris Paul there is going to take so much pressure off of Devin Booker. It's just going to take, and it's going to take the ball out of his hand, which is a good thing because it's hard to be the point guard and also the leading scorer of the team. So now he's going to play more shooting guard. He's going to be so open because he doesn't have to create as much for himself. Chris Paul will create for him. It's going to be beautiful. It's really going to be something else. Um,
They
you
should
know,
be a
we
fun team to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna watch Phoenix a lot if I can stay up that late because I'm getting older now. Um, Speaking of Crowder leaving the Heat, let's just real quick talk about some of the additions that the Heat made. We re-signed Goran Dragic, and then we also added Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless. I was kind of shocked by Bradley. I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one coming. Um, Jimmy Butler, man. They say Jimmy Butler made the call and got him there. How do you feel about Avery Bradley leaving the Los Angeles Lakers and coming to the Heat?
I like the get for the Heat because I mean, there's nobody. I mean, there's no team who's trying to make a deep push or win a championship for that matter that couldn't use him. I mean, a consistent D guy or defensive guy who can knock down a three, play his role well, and he's not a liability. He's not going to get just pushed over, and that can be a huge thing, especially depending on the matchups you have. Now, the Lakers showed they were able to win a championship without him, so I guess for them that changed his value to them, and they clearly had eyes on Schroeder as well too. But I think it's a very good addition for the Heat. Just more consistency, more of feel like he fits the culture there. And the Mo Harkless acquisition is interesting because since you did lose Crowder, he can fill that void some. He's not as well known of a name, I don't feel like, but he's got a decent size to him, and he can at least fill the void of Crowder. Another 3-and-D guy. I mean, essentially, I don't know what his like 3-point percentage is now since he hasn't been with the Magic forever. But I mean, that was always like his persona then, and based on what I've seen since, it's kind of the same thing. He's a utility guy, kind of, but he's got some okay size for his position. I think I think you needed him since you lost Crowder. You needed something like him. So the fact that you got him, it seems like a decent replacement for now.
Yeah, we do need him. We also re-signed Myers Leonard, which was a huge question mark because we didn't know if he was going to come back. He was hurt the second half of the season and the bubble run. He was kind of hurt, so we couldn't utilize him as much. But he was a big part of our success the first part of the season last year. So we'll see. My feelings are kind of hurt from losing Crowder because I really like Crowder. I did. I really, but I would have been more hurt if we would have lost Dragic because that's the one I was afraid of because Dallas was courting him very hard and he's such a great guy. He's gonna be a heat lifer. I know it. He just showed it to me now. He's gonna be a heat lifer. So I I really appreciate what he did in the bubble run after being on the bench all year. So kudos to him. And I told you he made this joke about Jimmy Butler. Said, "Don't let me come find you and hurt you if you don't resign with the team." So,
didn't he resign for 2 years?
It's a 2 years, but here's what the Heat did: is 1-and-1 contract. So they signed everyone 1 year guaranteed, and then the second year is a team option. So no player is going to be able to opt in the second year, and that way we can keep flexibility for you know who. I'm not going to say his name, but all the ducks are lining up now for us to say, "Come on, Giannis, let's go, let's do this." So that the Heat signings didn't jeopardize what we have going on in the future. And keep in mind, Bam hasn't signed his extension yet, but that's part of the plan too. So if Bam doesn't sign his extension this year, then you already know what's going to happen. So, because him and Giannis have the same agent, so we got it. We got it under control. Just got to take the steps to get there. Really quick.
We'll see.
Look, we got a lot of names to go through, so we got to make it quick and rapid fire through these. Dwight Howard to Philly. How shocked were you? I was hella shocked.
I was very surprised. I was just like,
hella shocked.
Why? Why do that? But whatever. At this point, he's got a ring. I wouldn't even care if he retired. Whatever.
Have you ever seen a franchise guy fall so quick and so hard? He's been bouncing around the league now for years.
And you think he could have maybe created some kind of small foundation and finished there, and maybe got another ring or two.
Right. I don't, bro. Whatever.
Since he left Orlando, like his career is all over the place. Whatever.
Right.
I'm glad he got a ring, but I don't even care anymore.
All right. So we talked about Phoenix making great moves. We talked about Miami making great moves. There's another team out there that made great moves. Nice young team, the Atlanta Hawks. They acquired veteran leadership Rajon Rondo, which we knew he was leaving the Lakers. You know, I had told you that last time. Rajon Rondo, and then also the big one, Danilo Gallinari to Atlanta. How do you feel about that? Because they're going to be a playoff team surrounded with Trae Young.
You would certainly think so. And for Atlanta to be like, it's weird because they're not like some people look at teams as kind of like a joke. I don't really see Atlanta that way, but just everything they've tried hasn't even become close to working like over the years. So they got Trae Young, who by all means just a baller. You know, I'm excited to see what Rondo can bring to the offense, like consistency wise, and just to see if he's able to help get Trae Young open at all, and just how the dynamic works, I guess mainly, and having Gallinari there to just relieve some of that scoring pressure because he can create. I mean, he can score on his own. We know that if healthy. So the fact that Atlanta's trying something is good because the East needs that anyways. But Trae
Yeah,
Young is a bona fide star, I feel
yeah,
like, and
yeah.
so getting him help is anything Atlanta can do to get him help is a big step in the right direction. And I don't see how these are detrimental to that at all. So I'm excited. I mean, I'm not like an Atlanta fan or anything, but just to see the team trying to get better, I think is fun to see. So
Oh yeah.
hopefully it works out for him. And Trae Young should have a pretty stellar year, just like I think Booker's gonna have.
Well, he's never had this many weapons before, and let's not forget there's a young kid down there with Trey Young. Those two have been great together, John Collins. So we can't forget about Collins because I think Collins has the potential to be a 2010 guy. Right now he's averaging about 13 and 9, but I think he can hit 2010. So Atlanta's going to be a very very nice team to watch. They're local, so I'll be able to watch them. I want to stay up this late like I will with the teams on the West Coast. But I'm going to have my eyes on the Hawks as well. And this is how you do it, man. You get you some defense, you get you some veteran leadership. Their coaching is still suspect right now. I know some of the fans don't like their coach, Mr. Lloyd, but it's okay. He'll grow into it. He'll grow into it. This is still his first, it's not his first year, but this is his first NBA franchise as a head coach. So he's still learning the ropes. But no, they're going to be pretty good. They're going to be pretty good this year. Here's another one. We talked about this briefly this morning. Serge Ibaka to the Los Angeles Clippers for 2 years. What do you think about the Clips? They lost Harrell, which was a shocker. They lost Harrell to the Lakers. I was like, well, damn. So how do you feel about them picking up Ibaka?
I was telling you the other day they can't finish out the free agency without doing something. They
Right,
had to do something.
right.
Either that or you're just gonna, in my eyes, you're just already giving up this year. If
Mm-hmm.
you didn't, and not even like really giving up, I mean, no team is going to do that this early on, in my opinion, that's legitimate like that. But I mean, come on. How are you going to get better? I mean, if you didn't do something like this,
Right.
because your coach is gone, if anything, in my eyes, that's a small step back because there's just disorganization at this point. Before you knew exactly what you were and how you were going to play. And so now that's in question a little bit. And on paper, you lost the guy to the team that won the championship in your division. So what are you doing if you're not really adding to your roster? So they had to do this in my eyes. I didn't know who or what they
Right.
were
We didn't know.
going for,
Yeah.
but I mean, Ibaka's a good addition. I mean, he can help anybody. Um, Big guy, blocks some shots and makes. He's not a liability on offense. He's not flashy or anything, but he can knock down his open shots and he can get the trash buckets and putbacks and stuff like that. It's like having him definitely is a plus, but how much of a plus? We'll see.
Yeah.
But they
We'll just
needed to
have
do
to see.
something.
They did. And we'll just have to see. You know, losing Harold was hard. But there was tension between him and some of the other players during the bubble. So it was like, okay, they might lose him. There were feelers out there saying that he might leave. There were feelers there. I actually heard one time that the Heat was interested in him. I'm like, is he really trying to leave? But now we see he really was
Mm-hmm.
trying to leave. And I don't think Patrick Beverly was too happy with him leaving either. He tweeted his angry emoji when the news broke that Harold left. So speaking of Harold leaving, he just went across the city to go to the Los Angeles Lakers, who had a pretty good week, to say the least. They added Harold, they added Wesley Matthews. They're gonna add Anthony Davis. He's gonna resign there. They're still working out the numbers and stuff like that. How do you feel about the Los Angeles Lakers and also the Schroeder deal? How do you feel about the Los Angeles Lakers and what they've done this past week?
I hope they don't miss some of that uh, Rondo playoff knowledge, which Schroeder is super experienced by this point. So I'm not expecting that. You know, like I expect him to kind of fill some of that void. So that one doesn't bother me as much. But adding Matthews and Harrell, that's massive to me
Yes,
because you're not
yes,
going to make leaps and bounds when you're already the defending champs. But in my eyes, they got a little bit better. So Wesley Matthews, I can't remember if he's like a defensive guy too, but I know he knocks down threes. I
He
know he's
he
an efficient score or shooter. So
he.
they desperately needed some more of that because
Yes.
at some points they were barely able to creep by with what they had. They had Pope and what Cook. Didn't Cook leave or
No, Cook is gone. They did re-sign Pope though.
yeah. So getting Matthews, I feel like it's a small upgrade, and then having Harold there is also. Um, I mean, you can't always have LeBron on, your one or two scorer. So having the other guy there to relieve some of the defensive pressure on LeBron all the time, I think is nice. But uh, that with Schroeder, I mean, I like what they did. You wish I would like to see them keep Bradley, but they didn't really have to. They got used to winning without him, so it didn't matter. But I think they got better and tougher, and the rest of the league, I feel like is they should be on notice because there's no reason for me to think that LA shouldn't win again.
Well, yeah, and that's why it was so important for them to win the championship this last season to
Mm-hmm.
see if they could do it with a weak roster. I said all year it was a weak roster. It wasn't really a shot at them; it was a fact. They had a weak roster, but now year two, the roster's going to improve because you're going to have more cap flexibility, and that's what they've done. Pope actually ended up getting a 3-year deal at 40 million, so that's pretty decent for him. But he earned it. His shooting in the NBA Finals, he earned that hands down. Um, the Lakers are really going to be a tough out now, especially with what happened in Golden State. They've lost Klay Thompson for another season, unfortunately.
I
So it's just
hate
like,
to see that.
yeah. So it's just like the Lakers are getting stronger. No one else in the Western Conference is really getting stronger. They're kind of staying even right now. So this should be another cakewalk for the Lakers in the West. The East teams are kind of bulking up a little bit, but the West looks like they're losing talent. They're degrading a little bit, and then you have this beast in LA. So we'll just have to see what happens. But the Lakers have had an absolutely fantastic week. We have another team in the Eastern Conference that's made some moves this week in the Boston Celtics. So they've added Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson. So how do you feel about that combination going to Boston? Even though they lost Gordon Hayward, how do you feel about the additions that they made?
Um, the way the team played and was built, losing Hayward for them, was just a lot of cap relief. I feel like because they really weren't utilizing him, at least not with what Boston thought they were originally gonna get. Like you said, with the injuries he's had, it opened up the space for. I mean, Jaylen Brown has thrived. All these guys have really gotten a chance to prove themselves. So, um, as bad as it sounds, like they didn't really need Hayward there,
Mm, mm,
not as currently built, and they're a pretty good team anyway. So they brought in two guys who have been in the league a long time, who can add to, I think, what the persona is in Boston. They're not, they're like high character guys who have played in the playoffs. They know what to do. They know their roles. Um, Tristan adds, a little bit of that size in the paint and get those offensive rebounds for the team. And Jeff Teague is just as steady as they go guard. I mean,
right,
there's a few of those guys. You got Augustine. You got a lot of those guys who've been in the league a long time that aren't flashy, but they know how to run an offense efficiently and they'll knock down
right.
open shots. Jeff Teague always had an efficient offense, and he knows what he's doing. So those two guys are great additions, I think, to the depth of that team. There's no reason why they shouldn't like have another deep playoff run. In my opinion, they're still pretty up there in the East, in my opinion, and they just got deeper. I think so.
Well, speaking of Augustine, he just signed in Milwaukee for 3 years, and I love DJ. Has always loved DJ. I still don't think at this moment that the Bucks have made enough moves to get over the hump. They've made moves, but there's not enough
Mm-hmm.
just yet to get them over the hump. So I'm still waiting because these other players are getting signed up, and there's a lot of trades going down, and the Bucks are kind of staying flat. So you have to keep your eye on that. You just have to.
Who was the other player they signed? Wasn't there another one? Not like flashy or nothing, but another low key signing.
Not really. No one who's going to make a difference. They signed a training camp deal to a kid named Jalen Adams, but they haven't really signed anyone else that stood out. They're trying to get Holiday. That's not official yet. They're still working that trade. He may get there, but they're still working that trade. But even with Drew Holiday, it's not enough to get you over that hump that they got to get you over. Because look, think about it like this: they got knocked out in the second round by Miami. I still think Boston would have gave them conference. Excuse me, Boston would have gave them issues in the conference finals. Look at what the Lakers just did in the Western Conference. Even with Drew Holiday, have the Milwaukee Bucks done anything that you think would allow them to beat the Los Angeles Lakers?
No.
Right. So it's like that's the question that they have to ask themselves. So making little moves are fine; they're cute on paper, but are you really doing anything to get that team better? Because if you don't, he's gone. So it's like, what are you doing right now? Try to get a Westbrook up there. Try to get someone like that up there. I don't know. I, they don't have a lot of trade pieces. They don't have a lot of money. It's hard. It's really hard for them right now. But they're
Hmm.
trying. They're trying to do something. But what they're doing is not going to be enough. They're going to have to say a prayer for the entire season. That's just
Yeah.
it. They're going to have to pray to the basketball gods to convince that kid to stay because he can sign his deal now too. He hasn't done it.
Mhm.
I don't think he will. So
History has shown us he's gone.
right, and it sucks, but you're 100% accurate. 9 times out of 10, they're out. So you're right about that.
This year is
So
make or break, and right now it's looking like it's already
right,
a break.
right. So far they're off to a rough start. Um, my other cousin, Carmelo Anthony, re-signed with the Portland Trail Blazers. Now we know Melo had a resurgence last season with Portland. I was hoping that he would make his way to LA, but we've talked about that a couple of times. So how do you feel about Melo re-signing with Portland?
And I mean, good for him, good for Portland. They obviously liked the fit and what he brought to the team. But Portland is maybe they're not far behind what Milwaukee is, but they're not as good as Milwaukee, in my
Right,
opinion.
right.
Like not there's not a huge gap there, but they're not quite on the same level. Like Milwaukee having Giannis here, like you should be making it to the conference finals. You should be. Okay, but anyways, regardless, I don't know how much time Portland's got left with Dame, and I feel like this year, why I haven't seen any other major changes to to the Portland roster. What are they doing? You're gonna
Well,
just waste these Dame years?
they added Cantor back, which is a good get because he
Hmm.
played well there before. So they added him back. They might let Whiteside go because Whiteside is going to be a free agent. So that's probably why they brought Cantor back in as an insurance policy because they might let Hassan Whiteside go.
Yeah,
So between the two, I would go with Cantor all day over Whiteside at this point. So that's one
yeah.
small move because you don't want to shake it up a lot. That's one small move. I've told you, with the Ric Flair shoes, Dame is going to win MVP this year. He's just going to do it. He has Nature Boy in his
And
blood. So it's going to happen.
and then at
But
what point are they gonna get ejected if they have to play the Lakers again? Because that can look ugly if they have to play them early. Because that's what's gonna happen. Because
I don't think
they don't have it what it takes to win the West.
I don't think they'll be the eighth seed. So I think they'll be able to avoid the Lakers. I think their max is going to be maybe the sixth seed this year because they caught fire. And well, they had to catch fire in the bubble because they're out of the playoffs, but they were hovering around the eighth seed all season. I think they're going to put it together. I think they're going to be the sixth seed, between the sixth and seventh seed so they can avoid a matchup with the Lakers. We still have to see what Houston does because if one of those guys gets traded, Houston's going to fall off a little bit, which will leave an opportunity for Portland to move up and also for Phoenix to move up. So we have to watch that. But I think Portland, they're not going to make a deep run this year. I just because you still have Denver, who just re-signed Millsap. You still have Utah. It's
I
tough,
feel like
man.
their best case scenario is like what happened to Houston, but they have on paper maybe not as much talent as Houston. Best case scenario, they make it to the second round, I think, and get smashed by someone. Or I mean, it might be competitive, but if they play the Lakers, I feel like they play the Lakers, they get smashed. Any other team, I just don't see them making it past the second round, even if that second round is against a team that they're more competitive against, because I just don't know if there's enough difference there. Like I feel like Denver, maybe not Utah, but I feel like especially Denver is, and maybe Phoenix, they're on this rise where they already have these proven talents and proven scorers, especially Denver. I mean, Dallas, especially Dallas with Luka and
Yeah,
Porzingis.
Dallas
But
Dallas gonna be dangerous too.
Dallas looks like they just, and not taking anything away from Portland, the momentum and the what Dame can do, because what Dame can do is amazing. I just don't know if it's all enough. And the West is going to be nasty next year to watch. I mean, no matter what happens to Houston, um, it's just going to be nasty to watch as always. But I just feel like Portland is like a year behind Houston in that they're going to, like, this is probably the best we're going to see Portland this year. And I just don't see them making it out in the third round. And then in that case, what else are you doing? Like, clearly you can't get any other really big name there yet. You haven't been since Dame's been there. And like, what are you doing? So I hope the best for them, but I just see like a second round knockout, and then the team looking at themselves like, well, that was basically what we do. What next?
Yeah. So you have, and you mentioned the similarities between Portland and Milwaukee because you have the same situation where you have a transcendent superstar on the team, one who is vowing to stay no matter what, and then the other one who is leaving his options open. But now you're looking at the one who's vowing to stay and be like, bruh, I know you're loyal, but bruh, at some point you got to get the fuck out of Portland, right?
Yeah,
So it's oh man, it's a tough decision, and it's tough for the superstars. It's always tough for them because you don't want to completely turn your back on the only franchise you've known, but at the same time, it's like, what can I do here? Like, is there anything else I can do here?
yeah,
And we saw what happened last year. I don't look. On my side. It was fortunate enough to be Miami. There's no way the Milwaukee Bucks should have got put out in the second round in the fashion that they did. It went 6 games by the grace of God. That was a 5 game series. It shouldn't have happened. So for Portland in the Western Conference, which is loaded, kind of right now, we'll see what happens to Houston. Dame has a tougher path, and it's just like I think he has to come east. And there's a team out east right now with a point guard who said he wants to be traded. And that's John Wall. Pick up the phone, get Dame to Washington, pair him up with Bradley Beal, who is a better CJ McCollum. Let's just be honest. Washington has spent some money on some shooters right now. Make it happen. Get Dame out of Portland. Send him to Washington. We'll see what happens with the Wizards. What do you think?
I definitely would be interested to see him come east. I'd hate to see him squandered on Washington, just like Wall is. So maybe I'll take him in Orlando, please. But I would like to see him. I'd like to see him move from Portland, and I like Portland, but I think he needs a change of scenery, and they need to shake things up. So yeah, I'd like to see that. I just don't care about Washington, so I don't want him there.
Look, if he
Yeah, I'd
goes
like
to
to see it. And
Washington,
Wall too. Wall needs a fresh start, I believe.
right, right. If he goes to Washington and pair it up with Bradley Beal, that'd be a great fit. Um, look, John Wall, Bradley Beal, they tried to make it look clear. They don't like each other. I'm sorry. They don't like each other. I've said it before. They don't like each other. They don't play well together. Let's just stop the fake shit and go ahead and split them up. So Walls finally said he wants out. Hell, he hasn't played in almost 2 years. Now he said he wants
Yeah,
out. Get him the fuck out of there. I'm sorry. Like, I'm over it. I'm over it. That experiment is done. It's been done. They've
yeah.
wasted so much time in Washington. They've wasted 5 years in Washington trying to get this thing to work. It will not work. So swap them up. Send John Wall to Portland, get Dame in Washington. Let's see what happens. Bill's gonna be there. He's gonna be there. He's not going anywhere. He's gonna be there. So give him another teammate. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate seeing any other surprises this week? I don't think we will. But do you anticipate seeing anything? Anything you want to see? Any trades you want to see happen?
Uh, no, like I'd like to see. I mean, as a Magic fan, I don't expect anything major really yet.
Mm,
Like what we'll see. Not really tied to anybody, so whatever they do, I'm just kind of open to seeing what happens. But I, I'm sure like the rest of the league, waiting to see what happens with Houston.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Those
thought
two guys, just for the sake of seeing how the landscape of the league changes. That's what I'm waiting on.
the last report I saw on that was that the Nets have kind of backed off of trying to get James Harden there now.
Thank
I
God.
I will say this. I will say this. If all this talk, we know calls were made, we know it. If all this talk happened and Russell Westbrook and James Harden has to come back to Houston and play a season, it will be absolutely total destruction every night because it's they're gonna implode. Something's gonna happen. They're gonna one of those players are gonna just snap. It's gonna be an implosion in Houston, and it's not gonna be good for that franchise. With Harden not wanting to be there, Westbrook's like, fuck it, I don't want to be here either. You can't bring them back at this point. You just can't.
Yeah.
So Houston said they're prepared for all situations. I don't think they are. We saw how Jimmy Butler ended in Minnesota when he said he didn't want to be there and they wanted to keep him. So it's just
Yeah.
like it's going to be that all over again. So with that said,
Yeah.
that's it for this week's episode of the Hardwood Nation's Flagrant 2 podcast. We will catch you guys next week. Peace.
See